Welcome everyone to Melfuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Alien Earth Season 1 Episode 7. It's called Emergence. So spoilers for the episode as always. It is the penultimate episode of the season as well. And we have a variety of things going on here. Chaos is kind of just happening at the island. Obviously the goal of getting Wendy out to the boat from Joe, that's in motion. We also have the aftermath of everything that happened in the lab. And of course, we have the kids trying to take out Arthur's face-hugged body to the outside. Not just, what was his name? Slately. Not just him. Also Smee. He kind of enlists his help because Smee shows up, sees the unconscious body, and very quickly agrees to help to move the body to the meeting location on the outskirts of the island, near the beach. So those are kind of our main plot points, our main storylines that we follow during this episode. Last week, I made a very conscious choice where I wanted to start off with positives because I've been kind of negative on the show. I've not really been enjoying it. I'm not really seeing much of the positive qualities that most people are. But I wanted to start with the positives to, start on a good note before I started weighing in on all the things that I didn't like or my just general apathy to everything going on at this point. Sadly, this week, I don't think I have any positives, if I'm being completely honest. I guess there was a little moment early on in the episode when Wendy intentionally releases the xenomorph with those tech powers that we established she had way back in the first couple of episodes. She releases the xenomorph to create a distraction, basically, so that they can get away easier, and there's chaos, and the soldiers are all occupied. And I thought that was a nice little bit. That was a fun idea. But one of my problems with the episode is that after that point, it felt kind of shocking to me how little atmosphere or tension there was in anything that was going on. Right? The Cavalier, right? The boy, right? Boy Cavalier. He knows the xenomorph's out. Him and one of the others, probably his henchman, see on the security footage that the xenomorph is out and is killing some of their troops. And yet, despite that, there's still a scene with them, with the boy Cavalier just obsessing over the sheep eyeball alien, who he's very impressed with because they watched the footage of it trapping the other kid in the room, and they're he's making the sheep finish some digits of pi to prove that it's smart. Which, I mean, I feel like while mathematics is fairly universal in a lot of ways, it doesn't mean that other species write down numbers the same way, right? I feel like him writing 3.14 in his hand, that shouldn't necessarily translate. Admittedly, this eyeball alien might have picked up our numbers when he was held captive on the ship or something. I don't know, but maybe that's a little bit nitpicky, and it's far from my big complaint or anything. It just felt a little bit, I don't know, like we were sort of skipping over some logic just to get to a quicker destination, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but I think because this show's had some dumb logic and things like character decisions, and also just, how little anyone seems to be aware of what's going on, or how little anyone seems to care. We literally have the alarm going off saying there's been a containment breach after the xenomorphs got out. And I feel like every other scene with every character after that point, no one seems to be concerned that the xenomorph's out and loose. Right? And some of them don't know because they're out in the outskirts of the island by this point and they're traveling and all that. So those scenes don't have any of that tension that there's a xenomorph around for most of the episode. Boy Cavalier and his people don't seem to be concerned for whatever reason, even though they should be at least a little bit concerned. I mean, I get that Boy Cavalier's kind of quirky and maybe he wouldn't care as much because he's too obsessed with the thing that he's focused on, and he just wouldn't predict or conceive that he would be a victim or that he's in danger because he's too arrogant, effectively. I can maybe see that, but no one seems to give a shit. So the xenomorph gets out, the door opens, there's a quick scene of him jumping around killing the various people in the lab at that moment, which is also kind of cold on Wendy's part because she's effectively had at least 3 people murdered in that scene. all just to create a distraction, which maybe brings into some of the question of like, is she kind of going off the deep end a little bit, which is definitely something that Joe considers later on in the episode. But like, there's just no feeling of the chaos. Like, it feels like it's starting chaos. That's what it feels like. It feels like, oh, the xenomorph's out. This is where everything's going to ramp up, and we're going to have effectively like a chaotic, tense movie for the final 2 episodes. And then, much to my dismay, the episode just slowed right the F down and just felt like another TV episode for the rest of the whole thing, with people talking and walking and kind of killing time in a lot of ways. I mean, not only that, like the whole Wendy Joe plot of like them going to the boat, like they go and pick up what's her name, Nibs, and they say Curly don't like tell on us because Curly doesn't want to go. Curly likes being here, so she doesn't want to go with them. But they just go from that point on. It doesn't even seem like they look for the others. I mean, we know the others aren't like anywhere easy to find because we know the other 2 are already out with the Arthur body with the face hugger. But it feels like they just don't even bother looking. They just sort of leave at that point, and it's like, okay, fine. Nibs is going kind of crazy, talking to her toy or whatever it is she's made, and we just kind of like stop paying attention to them for a really large chunk of the episode, where it becomes the Smee and Slightly show, where we're sticking with them with Arthur, and of course, as you might expect, eventually the facehugger leaves Arthur's body, and Arthur gets up, and he's kind of confused, why am I here, what's going on? And we spend several minutes of screen time with them lying to Arthur and saying that the place was evacuated for a gas leak, and that they have to go to the beach because that's where his wife is. And then once they get to the beach and they're walking towards, the final part of the trip, the journey, the destination they're going to, he basically says, like, I can tell you 2 are lying about something because, kids aren't good at lying. So whatever it is, I'm not going to be mad, but, let's open up to me. And he even thanks Slightly at one point for saving his life, which is obviously going to make Slightly feel bad because he did the exact opposite. And just as like they kind of agree to turn back and go with him, which feels like a big deal for Slightly in particular, that's when the facehugger, the chest buster, I should say, that's when the chest buster hits and he dies, right? It comes out of his chest, and the little xenomorph darts away into the foliage. And Slightly doesn't seem to be all that fussed with the fact that Arthur's dead. Smee's like, hey, you lied to me. You said he'd be okay. But that was something that even Slightly believed as well. Like, he was lied to by Morrow, but he doesn't seem to give a shit right now that Arthur's actually dead. But then they go to the meeting spot anyway with the corpse, and when Morrow shows up with a bunch of soldiers or Marines and they're all in scuba gear, I can't speak tonight apparently. They're like, oh, this is just a empty corpse. This is useless to us. And we have to do the song and dance. He's like, you're not going to hurt my mother though, right? You're not going to hurt my mother. And he's like, hey, you're coming with us. And, all of this, like from the second we cut to like them with Arthur's face hug body going through the forest or the jungle. I guess a forest more than a jungle, but whatever. It's fairly tropical though, so it's hard to tell. I'm not good at telling. But they're going through the greenery, and they're hiding from some like patrols. Like, this is just like the regular security force on the island that we know is here. And then from that scene, right, and then we have Arthur wake up. We go through all of that song and dance. We cut away for a little bit, and we come back, and we do all the stuff on the beach where he eventually chest bursts. Like, we're talking about 10 to 15 minutes of screen time on what feels like something that is completely ignoring the fact that a xenomorph got released. And I get that they're not as concerned with that because they're not a part of that plot. Like, I understand that. But from the experience of the viewer, right, you set us up. You give us this, like, you hit the ball off the tee. You've got the golf ball set up. You've had the golfer take the swing with the driver, and they go to hit the ball. And then we've cut away to 2 people having a picnic somewhere else, miles away, and in the back of your head you're going, yeah, but where's the ball going? He hit the ball, where's the ball going? This is a weird metaphor. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, other than just, it feels like the pacing and structure of the episode is rough, It feels like we set some exciting stuff up in the first like 5-10 minutes, and then we spend most of it on this journey where we know Morrow's not going to be happy with the corpse. We know that's not what he actually wants. So we're just kind of like waiting for it to play out. There's like nothing really interesting happening during that entire plot. Like the most engaging part potentially is the guilt that Slightly might feel because Arthur's like being nice to him and showing that he cares, and he's kind of done this to him and he trapped him in that room and all the rest of it. But it's also just kind of convenient that he doesn't remember that moment, right? I mean, I'd have to go back and check the first Alien to remember how much like he remembers in that movie after he was facehugged from before. But I don't think there was like a whole period of like amnesia. It seems like it was just the last like minute seems to be missing from his brain. But he's generally very confused. And I don't know if that's just kind of a forced thing because they wanted this whole he doesn't know that what Slightly did to him, so he can't remember just for the convenience of what we want to do with the dialogue. But I just found this a bit of a slog to sit through. And I think a big part of the problem is that I don't really give a shit about a lot of these characters. It happened earlier on in the episode as well, actually, when Wendy comes in and sees the dead body of the kid who died last episode. What was his name? Tooties? Tooties, that's the one. When he's lying on the table and she like reacts all like, oh god, he's dead, and kind of, you know, talks back to Boy Cavalier a little bit and whatever. You know, she is like horrified, upset, and thinks that, you know, this is an outrage, and she reacts that way. And I was thinking during her reaction, I'm like, she's like, someone who's supposed to be her friend, her kin, is dead, and she's reacting to it in a big way. This is effectively our main character reacting to someone close to her dying and being outraged, and she blames the people, you know, in the company. She blames Boy Cavalier for it and whatever. Like, I should feel something here. I should be feeling more of that, more for this. And I think part of the problem is that we barely got to know Tooties. Like, he was like, honestly, him working in the lab got a couple of scenes to establish that he was into helping in the lab, and then it was time for him to do his bit where he died. There was very little with him. You know, maybe I mean, maybe there was some stuff with everyone when they went to the ship in episode 2, but from episode 3 onwards, it feels like everyone, like all of the kids outside of Wendy and Slightly, because Slightly's got the plot with Morrow, everyone else has felt a little bit undercooked. Like they've had like 1 or 2 scenes in a couple of different episodes, right? Curly had the one episode where she got to say, I want to be the favorite chosen one, and that was her whole thing, right? And there's been very little development on that since then, right? Nibsy's whole thing was a bit later, but that was that I'm crazy and she thinks she's pregnant, and, you know, they reset her brain, right? That was her thing. And she's seemingly dead now, right? So maybe I'm supposed to care about her. I saw someone online, I can't remember what it was, but someone online said that this would probably be a lot better if it was a movie instead of an 8-hour TV show. And while I wouldn't love a lot of the decisions they made in this, I have to, like, thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, part of the problem here might be stretching this out to 8 episodes is kind of weird. And it does make the entire middle 6 episodes of the show, or middle 4 episodes, because it was 8, yeah. You know, because the first 2 felt like it was going for more alien stuff. And well, I didn't think it was great in that respect. You know, I definitely had critiques and complaints back in episode 1 and 2. It was at least going for something that felt a bit more like an alien movie. And I'm not saying that I just want the show to try and be that the entire time. In fact, when it did the flashback episode, I was perhaps more critical of that than I was anything else in the show. But this episode really highlighted to me just how much it feels that we're padding for time, and it's almost like the mistake to me of like them trying to make us care about some of these characters, which I think it's fallen flat, is because you care about characters when they're written into plots and have something to do, right? You know, you tell a story between 2 characters to build a bond. So then after you have that story in, say, 1 episode, in a later episode, you're like, hey, they earn these 2 being friends. You know, maybe they have a plot where they have to survive together or something, and they get out in the nick of time by the end, but because they have go through a harsh thing together, something's happening, which is great for a TV show. Stuff happening is always good, and which is maybe the nicest thing I can say about this episode. There was at least stuff happening a lot. I mean, I guess I'll say that much. At least early on in the end, there was a bit of a lull in the middle, but I think the mistake that this, and I think a lot of like mediocre TV makes, is that they think character development to make us care about characters when stuff happens later towards the end of the story is to just have lots of dialogue scenes, right? And there's nothing wrong with dialogue scenes. Most things are made up of dialogue in some form or another, but it's just having scenes of them sitting down and talking about their lives as opposed to them discovering things about each other or letting the audience get to know them because they're put into situations where some of that stuff comes out. So I guess it goes back to the old adage of all filmmaking, really, which is show, do not tell, right? And you don't necessarily take that to like the 100% degree always. Like sometimes you have to tell something, but have the characters actually do something. Have them go through something together. But so many of these characters have literally just been waiting around on this base, on this island, for 4 or 5 episodes now, with very little plot actually happening, other than their one designated scene where they get to go talk to someone. Like, you know, I think Curly's a great example of this. Her one thing is that she went to Boy Cavalier and said, I want to be the chosen one, not Wendy. And they had some back and forth, and that's kind of it. Right? Where maybe, just spitballing here, you don't even put them in a real situation. Maybe you just have them training, like in military tactics or something, and you have like everyone doing well, but Wendy's doing the best, but you see that Curly gets driven by that and starts like getting a little bit like reckless or a little bit like selfish and trying to prove that she's better than Wendy, right? So you show that she wants to prove that she's better than Wendy, and you make it like a character thing through action, through a story that you're telling. But that's not what this show did. This show just had her go to another character and say she wants to be the favorite one. She wants to be the special chosen child that's going to be used for everything. That's all the show gave us, was her going and saying that to another character. So it's hard to actually care that much when it's relevant later on. And arguably, I don't know if it has been that relevant yet, but I'm assuming something's going to come of it in the last episode. You know, I mean, Nibs did have something a little bit more kooky going on, at the very least. You know, she acted out in a weird way that made you take notice, but, you know, ultimately, I think the other one that I would go to is the friendship between Slightly and Smee, where all of their stuff has been kind of just them acting childish together. Obviously, they had that stuff with the eggs back in episode 2, I think that was, where they were standing around waiting at the eggs, and then Morrow eventually showed up, right? They're on like the mission there, so I mean that's something, right? To be fair, but they basically just become friends by saying, "Hey, are we friends now?" And like, and I get that that's realistic. I get that that's what people in the real world act, especially children. Like when children, like 2 kids in like early school, meet each other for the first time, and they basically say, "Hey, do you want to be friends? Yeah, let's be friends." But from a storytelling perspective, that doesn't work. You have to have them go through something together where one helps the other one, or they help each other, or something, right? So that when we get to a point where Slightly saying, "Hey, Smee, can you help me move this guy, even though this looks super suspicious and he looks like he's in trouble because he's got a face hugger attached to his face," we could believe that Smee is ride or die for him. And like, despite how bad this looks, despite the fact that he's effectively helping him dispose of a dead body, right? Because that's the equivalent thing here, right? Is like, hey, who would you call to help hide a dead body if you happen to end up murdering someone? That's the type of like predicament he's in, and it's over in about 20 seconds, where he just holds him up and says, "Hey, he said he's going to kill my family. Can you help me, please? Help me, please, please, please." And he just kind of nods, and that's it. We move on, right? It's a nothing decision. It should be a big decision. It should feel like he's really putting his neck out for him. So later on in the episode, when the chestburster happens and Smee's immediately like, "You lied to me. You said he was going to be okay," I just couldn't help but feel like, why should I care? Like I don't buy this. It's this quick thing you've introduced for him to be feel lied to, for him to feel betrayed later, you lied to me and said he was going to be okay, just feels so light and like hollow, because there was never any reason why he should have felt convinced in the first place. So it just feels like, you made a dumb decision and here's your dumb result. That's all you get. It didn't make me feel bad for him. It didn't make me like him more because he cares about this. It didn't make me like these two as a pair because he's willing to help him. All of it just fell flat. I just wasn't caring because we're gearing up into the final beats of the story, and it's not really done the legwork to actually make me care about any of these characters. So I'm at deep critical mode at this point because I think it's fundamentally failing in just about every storytelling way that I can possibly think about, honestly. Like, I don't know what I was supposed to like in this episode. None of it worked. All right, so I mean that's that stuff. What else do I want to talk about? I mean, I guess just to sort of tack onto that, Kirsch kind of like let them go and like told them the best way to go to the beach. And it's like, okay, what's he up to, right? He's been kind of aware that this stuff's been going on. He's helping them. And it's like, what's the purpose behind all this? I feel like at the end of this episode, when they come back to the base and Kirsch comes out with a whole host of Marines, and it's like, Morrow, you've lost. Don't be a sore loser. And he even taunts him because he's caught the little xenomorph in the forest. Like, we see a quick shot of him getting netted, and it turns out that was Kirsch. Kirsch got the xenomorph. And it's like, oh, they're going to lock them up. So it feels like Kirsch is still just working for Boy Cavalier, which kind of deflates, like, a lot of what that suspense, I guess we'll call it. The intrigue, I think is a better word. The intrigue of what he was up to, right? A lot of the intrigue for Kirsch, when it felt like, oh, he knows that something's going on with Slightly, but he's not telling anyone. We assume it's because he wants to see it play out. Maybe he wants to see the chaos happen, or he wants to see this, or he wants to see that. And instead, it just kind of feels like in the end, it was just because he thought it was his way to victory. Like, it was like, it was being efficient at doing his job. It was basically using Slightly as bait to capture Morrow and whoever else were going to come with him. He was kind of prepared for this, and that's kind of all he was really doing. I guess he also wanted the new alien as well, but it just doesn't feel like it had that much spice to it in the end, whereas like, oh, he's going against Boy Cavalier, he's doing something in secret, he's got his own agenda, his own intentions, motivations, whatever they may be, and in the end it doesn't really feel like that's true. It just kind of feels like this was just his weirdly efficient way because he saw the dominoes falling correctly or something. I don't know, maybe I'm misreading that a little bit, but it just didn't feel like, oh, this is the payoff to like what he was really wanting from all this. It just kind of felt like he's still just doing his job, and this was just him playing four-dimensional chess with Morrow effectively. So yeah, I wasn't really feeling that all that much either. The big thing with Wendy's plot, when we finally do come back to it, right, because we're away from her and Joe for a long time, and they're with Nibs. There is one scene kind of in the middle where they find the gravestones of the children that they used to be. And obviously one of the questions that's came up in this show is the idea of, is it really these kids that are in these synth bodies, or is it just duplicates of that data and it's not really them anymore? It's just like synthetic life who has the memories of these children, but these children are actually dead. Right? That's the question that was posed a few episodes ago. And I'm happy for that question to be posed. It's quite a complex thing without having to actually say it out loud. So I'm not going to critique them for spelling that one out too much. But, like Nebs clearly she says something ominous, but it does sound like she doesn't think she's her anymore. She's like, no, this, like, I don't think I'm me anymore or something like that. She says, I can't remember the exact line, but she's kind of like being kind of kooky and she's having these thoughts. And the thing that worries Joe when we come back to this and they're confronted by a team of Marines, right? I assume from Morrow's group, I think, who are like, hey, put your weapons down, we're coming in. And Wendy just starts making alien noises and calls in the xenomorph. And the xenomorph wipes out this entire squad, just goes around killing them. And of course, Joe's like looking over at her all creeped out and says, you let it out. He didn't know that until this point, apparently. He didn't see that when she was doing it. So Which is fair enough. I'm not complaining about that. That could have been one way or the other if he actually saw what she was up to when she was manipulating the computer. But this is the start. They're kind of introducing this thing here where maybe for the first time Joe is a little concerned that it's if like either he's thinking this isn't really his sister anymore, or he's at least thinking, oh, she's like scaring me. That is like she just had all these people killed. That is evil, maybe not be the word that he'd be thinking, but certainly he's having doubts here. And that kind of sets up the ending. And I'm going to be honest, I think the ending to this episode is one of the clunkiest, weirdly directed scenes I have seen in the TV show in quite some time. I was just kind of sitting dumbfounded by how this final scene plays out. When they get to the boat and they jump on, it's a small boat, but then like the marine friends that Joe had like pop out and say, hey, we told you not to come here. And then there's an entire squad that comes up on the docks, right? They're on the pier and they're all pointing their guns down at them. And there's a bit of a standoff. And it's actually Nibs, right? When they're saying like, hey, you're going to go back, and Nibs says, I'm not going back there ever. Nibs grabs the jaw of one of the soldiers and just rips off the jaw, right? Super brutal, super violent. And I'm always down for a little bit of like over the top gore. Don't mind me. But the scene then plays out where Wendy starts fighting the other Marines that are on the boat, which is just a couple, right? There's like two in front of them, maybe one or two behind them. Small selection. But there's an entire row of Marines on the pier, all pointing guns. And we just kind of ignore them for this fight taking place. And they've kind of got a reason for not just opening fire. They do kind of point out that they're not supposed to damage the synths, right? Like these synths are expensive. Cavalier wants them back. We are not to damage them, right? That's a fine reason. I'm on board with that. It doesn't explain why they don't either incapacitate Joe a little bit more than they do or whatever, but this all kind of goes out the window at one point, though, because the main Marine lady that we've met a few times, she shoots Nibs multiple times, clearly damaging her, maybe not killing her. It's actually Joe that ends up killing her, seemingly, assuming she's dead. And there's a moment here when this fight starts breaking out where Wendy starts making alien noises and Joe covers her mouth with his hand. This idea being that he's like, no, you can't kill all these people. Like, we're not doing that. We're not just throwing away lives willy-nilly. We can't be murderers, blah, blah, blah. Right? I understand the logic of that. That makes sense. But the way this is filmed and the way it plays out, like from a pacing perspective, the way that none of the soldiers on the pier ever like try and step in the boat to help, they just kind of stand there watching the entire time. It feels really weird. Like, I don't know, there's something really off about the setup of the whole thing. And then ultimately the final cliffhanger of the episode is that when Nibs is going to go after another one of the Marines, Joe grabs the rifle with the electric blast and he fires it at her. And Nibs goes down, possibly dying. And Wendy's like shocked and says, what did you do? And screams, what did you do? As the needle drop that we end every episode with happens. And we cut to credits. I thought everything about this ending was weird. The way it was filmed, the way the Marines weren't like getting involved, all the ones that were on the pier, when it felt like some of them should have been stepping in to try and help restrain someone or something. The way that this, it's kind of like a weird like character spin at the end. Like, I get that Joe doesn't want these people to die, right? And that's why he takes the shot that he does. And he kind of draws this line where Wendy cared more about Nibs than saving any of these people, right? She was like, no, these people are after us. They're the enemy. And Joe is now taking this step, and she's now horrified by what he's done. And he, in turn, is kind of horrified by her using the xenomorph to kill people. So, I mean, I guess it all boils down to, like, I mean, outside of the weird filming and focus of the scene and the way that it just feels a bit clunky, the actual final cliffhanger with her screaming, what did you do? Just landed with a thud for me. I just did not care. I just, like, you have not sold me enough on this relationship between this brother and sister for me to care remotely in the vicinity of enough to care about this cliffhanger, that this cliffhanger hinges on her and him kind of having this divide between them. And I really don't know where they're going to go with it for the final episode. And it's worth mentioning her pet xenomorph is still running around in the forest, right? It's still out there. And hell, after the first scene where she used the xenomorph to kill everyone, it came out and got like pet in the head and stood up straight in front of her. And all of this is just, I don't. I think I said before that like it makes sense that aliens have some kind of communication with each other because of the way the alien queen gives them orders, right? That was something that was in Aliens. But there was still a lot of mystique to that because it was like, okay, we can understand that it's happening, but we're not just kind of like having a human being, or in this case, a synth hybrid do it, right? Having the xenomorph come out in broad daylight and just stand in front of a character and basically just says hello and then goes and hides like a good boy when she tells it to. I mean, I don't know, the mystique, the atmosphere, it's all dead. It's just all gone. And not only is it dead, the whole thing feels a bit silly, right? We're in silly territory at this point. So, I don't know, I was having a hard time taking a lot of this seriously in the back half of the episode. Stuff that was supposed to have dramatic weight kind of landed with a thud. I felt some resolutions to things so far felt less interesting than anything we could have predicted they were going to be. And then the final scene is just a baffling sequence of direction and just a sequence of events. Like the way it plays out, the way characters get involved in things, and then all the cliffhanger being all weighted on this one element of Wendy being pissed that Joe took that shot and maybe he's killed Nibs. As if he's like switched sides, as if, oh, you're now one of them. Like that's kind of the attitude of the scream at the end, kind of thing. So I don't know, and maybe there's some interesting like philosophy here and psychology. Like, Wendy's trying to convince herself so much that she is really her, that she is really Marcy in there, and this idea that she thinks that Nibs is really Nibs. I mean, that wasn't her real name, but she is really that person. So she sees this as a death in a way that maybe Joe doesn't anymore. Or maybe Joe just took the shot because he knew that Nibs was going to kill someone, right? It's not about what he thinks of Nibs, it's about just knowing that she's willing to kill and he's willing to save someone that he kind of cares about. So, I'm not saying that you can't think about it and kind of piece the motivations and the logic together. You kind of can for most of it, but that doesn't make it like exciting to watch or satisfying or all click into place in a really seamless way where you sort of feel that satisfaction of everything coming together and you realize, oh, someone's about to make this choice because we've set up that they've been thinking of this. I said last episode that I hated how quick Wendy's 180 was from like, oh no, this place is great, I love Boy Cavalier, oh no, I don't trust this place anymore, what they've done's horrific. And in this episode, we kind of just steamroll through, like, we have to get out of here. No, we can't leave. Oh, no, we can. But as long as we go and try and help all the others, even though we won't try to find half of them. Oh, and then, now Joe's having, like, thoughts about his sister being psychotic, or indeed thinks that she's not really her anymore, that the real sister is in that grave, and this is just some computerized duplication that thinks it's her. I don't know. And that's not a bad idea if even Wendy like realizes that's what she is and has to come to terms with that, but that doesn't necessarily make her less of a life. She's still alive, she still gets to make her own choices, and even if she kind of shares this backstory with this other person, she's still living, she still has feelings, she still cares about things, and so on and so on. There's still potential good story to mine there, but I think the execution of this show, particularly in this back half, has been pretty rough, and I'm finding very little to enjoy in this episode, I have to say. I've been kind of down on it almost since the start, and I know some people probably think I'm being too picky, or I'm holding what makes Alien too precious or whatever, but I think it's gotten worse as well as it's went on. I have thought things have been off the entire time, and I think that last episode had a couple of good scenes, but I didn't like the rest of the things around it. I think this episode is arguably the worst one. I mean, the flashback episode, I didn't like it. Well, at least that had the good eyeball alien scenes. There were still a couple of scenes in there that I enjoyed. I don't think I liked any scenes in this episode. I was just kind of sitting there in a bit of a weird trance, just trying to like get to the ending more than anything, and at times just kind of almost like just kind of like not laughing, but like just kind of shaking my head with a grin, being like, "Wait, this is their alien show? Like this is what we're doing? We've got a girl alien whispering, a xenomorph who's like running around like her pet in broad daylight. I don't know, like everything about it just feels like just a bunch of weird decisions. And I don't think that you couldn't have done this and built up to it and earned it in a way where it wouldn't feel so weird and out of place. But this show has bizarrely rushed so many things, or it's tried to develop things with a couple of quick dialogue scenes between pairs of characters, as opposed to actually having things develop naturally in the course of actually having stories. And I think that's kind of why, if you go back to the idea that it's like a 2-hour movie that's been spread out over 8 hours, I think that's where you feel that. Because a TV show, what it should do, right, is it should give them other things to do, other plots to have, that develop the characters and the themes throughout the middle of the show, so that when we get to all the payoff stuff, we care about everyone more, right? And in a movie, you only have X amount of time, so you have your opening, you have your act 2, and you have your big act 3 climax. This feels like a movie where the second act has been stretched out for like 5 episodes of a TV show, and as a result, it's it's a lot of what feels like sludging through things without anything major really happening. And it's the sort of thing where I didn't really want to say that when I watched the episode 4, say, because it's like, oh, we're still kind of, we're, even though that's halfway through the show at that point, you don't feel like you've got like a good perspective yet. But now that we're one away from the end, now we've only got the finale to go. Like, I can't imagine, even if the finale is amazing, and at this point, like, I can't believe it will be, because I've been down in the entire show and I hated this episode. But let's say the finale is 10 out of 10, spectacular, somehow defies the odds, and I love every minute of it. It's not going to make up for the 7 episodes that preceded it. It's not going to feel like a good season of TV just because the finale was good. And, the finale's probably going to be middling, right? For me, at best. Like, even if it's much better than this, that's only getting into middling territory, because I did not like this episode at all. And I have very little positive things to say about it. So, there you go. That's my thoughts on Alien Earth episode 7. It sucks, and I think I'm bordering on just hating the show at this point, and I'm kind of mad that it exists now. So, and even though Eyeball Alien is great, there was nothing good with Eyeball Alien in this episode. Boy Cavalier just stares at him and asks him what pi is at one point. Mathematical pi, not not like apple pie or pumpkin pie or steak pie or anyway. So let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments. You can like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. Helps out a bunch if you do. Of course, you can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble, or you can support via YouTube membership or super thanks. Anyway, it's greatly appreciated. Thanks to everyone who already supports us. That is the review. Thank you once again for joining me. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?